Hi, my name is Vivek Shraya. Back in 2006, I was 4 years into my now 22-year-long art career, and I was struggling with a feeling. It was probably not a new feeling, but it felt new in the context of being an artist. I was looking around me, specifically at artists around me, and I wanted what they had. I wanted the attention they were getting from labels or fans, or on MySpace, and I wanted to be able to write songs that would capture that kind of attention or connection. It felt too hard to name this feeling in words, so I wrote a song instead called I Won't Envy.
Do you know what it's like to want to dance in somebody else's light?
It's interesting to look back now and realize that my response to my earliest encounters with that feeling, which I now know to be professional jealousy, was to tell myself that I won't do it, that I should not do it. And yet, no matter how many times I sang that song live or to myself, I couldn't stop being jealous of other artists. Finally, almost a decade later, I reached out to an older artist for advice. I quietly confessed that I struggled with professional jealousy and wondered how she managed her own. To which she responded that she never felt jealous. I immediately felt ashamed. This moment really exemplified why jealousy is such a difficult feeling. First, there's the heaviness of the feeling itself, but then there is also the accompanying shame for feeling something we're not supposed to feel. I'm supposed to be a generous artist and a good person, but clearly I'm not if I'm feeling jealous, right? Over time, I've come to realize that jealousy is actually a byproduct of being an artist, at least for me, and no amount of repressing or denying it can make it go away. In fact, my most successful strategy to manage my professional jealousy has been to name it. But the question I had posed my artist friend all those years ago has been one that I have continued to be curious about. What other strategies did fellow artists use to manage their own jealousies? This curiosity is the inspiration behind this podcast. In each episode, I'll be talking to artists in different creative fields to learn about their relationships to professional jealousy and how they have come to understand it and navigate it. I'm Vivek Shraya, and you're listening to I Won't Envy. Today I'm talking to Denim and Pythia, both known for their appearances on Canada's Drag Race. Denim's non-drag name is Emerson Sanderson. He's a transgender autistic multidisciplinary artist based in Montreal, Quebec. His practice mainly exists through video, textile, drag performance, photography, electronic and cyber arts, exploring themes of identity, toxic positivity, harm reduction, the act of surveillance, and the cis gaze. Emerson channels the majority of his artistic practice through a drag persona known as Denim, who was created as a representation of the hyper-feminine persona he used as a safety blanket before having access to medical transition. Pythia is a non-binary drag queen and performer living in Montreal, Canada, originally from Greece. She has a background in theater set, costume and makeup design, as well as photography and graphic arts. Drag combines her love for fashion, history, pop culture, storytelling, and makeup into one, allowing her to create unique experiences through her performances and mystify audiences around the world. I wanted to talk to Denim and Pythia because I was curious how professional jealousy plays out in an art form that is so often connected to competition.
Since it's such an accessible thing online, like drag is literally everywhere and we all like follow each other and we're so intertwined with each other's lives. Like it's so easy to see what everyone else is doing all of the time and feel kind of, I don't know, like it's very easy to compare yourself and
Do you have like like a nemesis, like somebody who in particular you're kind of a little bit obsessed with, you're kind of jealous of, you're always tracking what they're doing. You're like, fuck, like this person's doing this. Like, do you have like a specific person? You don't have to share who it is, but I'm just curious if you have like a jealousy nemesis, a jealousis.
That's so funny.
There's sorry.
Go
Go
ahead,
ahead, go
Jen.
ahead.
No, I think there's definitely like specific people that I like gravitate towards that I compare myself to. And
Mm.
also like in the drag race world, like it's so easy for the fan base to like compare you to other people.
Yes.
Such a common thing to happen that it's like it's so easy to like do that to yourself as well.
Did you want to add something, Pythia?
Yeah, if that's okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's such an interesting concept about the social media and the fandom that contributes to that sort of jealousy because um, there's a few people that I have that are technically nemesis, but not nemesis because that's maybe like a very strong word. But
Yes, yes, yes.
there are specific people that I, get compared to a lot. And I understand there's so many franchises right now, and there's so much you can do, and there's so much that people's understanding of drag and art is, especially young fans. So it's easy to make those comparisons. And I never actually saw myself as these people, and I never actually compared myself as these people. But since there's been so much comparison and so much commentary on how much I remind them of them, or how much, maybe my costume that I wore reminded of something that they wore on the show, or, or our facial features, or it has gotten me to a point where I'm just kind of over it and I'm just like mad. And every time I see them, I'm just like, fuck. It's like, there's a few. So yes, I will admit, I'm sorry, but it's true.
No, this is the point of the conversation. I mean, one of the things I find so interesting about this is that there's the people you maybe have feelings about, but then there's ways that you're pitted against somebody without your choice. That like
Yeah.
Exactly.
the fandom compares you to people, and then suddenly now you're comparing yourself to this person that you didn't even clock before. And I'm curious, like, Denim, how do you manage that? Like, how do you manage, it's one thing to manage your own feelings of being compared, but when the fandom is comparing you to someone else, like, how do you manage those feelings?
I think sometimes it's hard to not like take it personally and not like hyperfixate on like separating yourself from that artist in a way, because I think this fandom has like a very narrow view of what drag is sometimes.
Mm.
It's like they're only seeing what they're being shown in like a mainstream light and what's on TV, but like drag is so much more than what we see on Drag Race. And yeah, I guess I just like try to remember like what my drag means to me, like what I'm doing it for.
Mm.
And like I've been doing this like long before Drag Race and long before I knew these people or was like connected to these people or compared to these people.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I just tried to like remember the essence of like what I do.
Yeah, that's beautiful. I mean, I think that's something that's coming up in these conversations a bit, is this idea that like one of the ways to manage jealousy is to try to recenter yourself, try to remember like why you do what you do, why it's important to you. Pythia, I'm wondering, with the other artists you've been compared to, have you ever had a transparent conversation with each other? Have you been like, oh man, this really sucks that we get pitted against each other, we get compared to each other? Like, because I'm wondering if part of like navigating jealousy and in the context of drag is like being able to just like have a real conversation with these other artists, because they're probably feeling it too, right? So I'm just curious if you've ever had that kind of transparent conversation.
It's very funny that you mentioned that actually, because yes, I have had an actual face-to-face um, encounter with one of the people that I get compared to a lot. And I was kind of curious. I'm like, are they aware of the comparisons? Because they're much bigger than me. They're
Mm.
obviously in the American franchise. They have a bigger following. So I was like, do they even know who I am? Do they even know about these comparisons? And to my surprise, I go to one of their shows and I am mingling afterwards to say hi because there's a few other people in the cast that I know and I wanted to say hi to. And they come up to me And the very first thing that they say is like, stop copying me.
Oh,
And I was like, and honestly, I was just so excited to meet them and talk
oh
about this. But
no.
once they said that, I was like, don't flatter yourself. And I
Oh
literally just
no.
walked out.
Oh no.
Because I swear to you, I have never like even went on their page for inspiration ever, you know? So it's so weird that this negativity had festered, but not to our doing. But anyway, yeah, it was very, very uncomfortable.
Oh, that's so heartbreaking because like in an ideal world, right, what would could have happened in that moment is both of you have like a moment of solidarity. Like this person clearly knew who you were. Denim, has your jealousy ever gone like one of the worst ways your jealousy has manifested? I'm just thinking about what happened to Pythia. And I'm curious, like, if you've ever like maybe lashed out or you've like, reacted in a really strong way. Like, has your jealousy taken you to a bad place?
Yeah, like being the second trans man on Drag Race, like there's not many people to compare it to. So yeah, I've been compared to Gottmik a lot because we're both trans men and it's kind of a new idea for kind of like the more mainstream audience of Drag Race.
Totally.
And yeah, when I was on my season, I got compared to her a lot, and a lot of people would say I was like the knockoff Gottmik or like the cheap Gottmik,
Oh no. Oh
and
no.
I like addressed it, not in a way that was like hateful towards her. It's just like the fact that someone can see like two trans men and automatically associate them with each other based off of their transness when like our aesthetics are so vastly different. Like if we were both cis men, like we would never be compared. That's like the hypocrisy of it.
Pythia, when you feel jealous, do you always know it's jealousy, or does it take you some time to name it to yourself, or what do you do in those moments?
Yeah, I think I'm mature enough, I would think so, to recognize that it is jealousy. And it's, like I said, it's not malicious or evil. It's just sometimes, like I said in the beginning, if I see maybe a concept or maybe a costume or something that I either had in mind, but I never
Mm.
executed and somebody else did it. And then I'm like, oh my God. And then I'm disappointed in myself. Like I should have done it when I first had the inspiration. And then, or sometimes when I do something and I have done it and somebody else does it, but then it gets more attention or more
Mm. Mm.
appreciation,
That
then
is
I'm like,
literally happening to me right
why?
now.
That's literally how,
And how do you deal with that?
yeah.
How do you deal with that?
Well, I just let it go. Really, I just
Yeah.
don't really think about it too much. What I do is special to me in my own way, and I do it not just for the recognition, I do it also for the artistry and the storytelling and the meaning that it has to me. And I just, like I said, I have to ground myself back into that
Hmm.
mindset, except it's kind of hard with social media because I feel like a lot of artistry has been lost in the sort of sea of approval that you need to get online, especially with drag and especially with the subculture and drag race. And it's a constant like fight to sort of stay relevant and make the new costumes, new hair, new posts. And yeah, it's a strange, what's it called, tightrope, like a strange
Yeah,
balance.
balance. Yeah.
Hmm.
I'm curious then, this feeling sometimes that another artist is able to do something that you've always wanted but didn't quite execute. Do you ever find that your jealousy then inspires you in a positive way where you're like, fuck it, next time I'm going to raise the bar. Like if you ever
Yeah.
see someone do something so amazing that you're just like, I'm going to take it to the next level. Maybe I'll throw that question to you, Pythia.
Yeah, that's actually such a beautiful thing that you just said that I'm thinking about. It's the fact that I feel like jealousy can also be turned into inspiration.
Hmm.
That's very interesting. So thank you for that. But yeah, it's true. I mean, it just makes me want to do more and showcase more of my artistry and showcase more of my work and then just yeah, stay true to myself. Yeah, no, there's been moments that, where there's certain trends and social media drag really sort of thrives on trends and accumulation of how do you say it? Like capitalizing on those trends. And sometimes you either miss them or you just are very late to participate in those. And then it just kind of dies down. And then you're just kind of like, fuck, I should have done more. I should have, pushed it more and I should have tried to be part of that huge wave. But yeah, I'm just kind of learning in the past few years to just let go of that and not and just keep true to myself because sometimes I found I've had to compromise a lot of my artistry to appeal an audience that I think wanted to see well, I did what I thought people wanted to see out of me, especially the first few years after Drag Race. But I feel like right now I'm kind of reverting to that point where I'm just going to trust in myself as an artist and just do what makes me special and what got me onto that point
That's
in the
beautiful.
first place. Because yeah, otherwise it gets too muddy.
Totally. Um, Denim, did you want to respond to that question? Like if you've ever, you've seen someone do something so incredible that at first you're really jealous, but then it kind of like actually inspires you maybe a little bit to take your craft to the next level.
Yeah, definitely. I think that happens to me all the time. Like I see things that I wish that I had have thought of, or yeah, like or things that I have thought of that I didn't do before someone else did it. And it definitely like pushes me to like elevate my drag.
Cool.
And yeah.
And maybe this is a question for either of you. Like, I'm curious. So, do you find like, are there strategies that you use to try to build more solidarity and community with fellow drag like queens? Given the conversation we're having, like, if you've tried to build, if there's ways in which you've tried to build more solidarity, what that looks like, and if that's helped.
It's very common for like people within the drag race world to like have beef, like especially with your own like cast members. Like obviously you're going through an incredibly like stressful situation together and you either trauma bond or you don't like each other. So but I think like my cast was really lucky. Like there was definitely drama and there was definitely like indifferences between my cast members. But we really like didn't want that to be a thing.
Mm,
And after we got back and like had the time to like step away from it, we all kind of had like a collective conversation where we were like, if we're feeling something, like we should share this with each other and we shouldn't immediately go to social media and like blast each other online. Like we should just be able to have these conversations with each other and like we really wanted to like keep the sisterhood that we have. And it's honestly like given us such a close and like tight knit relationship that I feel like is very rare in the drag race world. So yeah, I just wanted to.
yeah, no, that's such a great anecdote because to me I do feel like at least for me as an artist, I find that once I have conversation with other artists and connection, then like, quote unquote any bad feelings, whether it's jealousy or anger or resentment, like it's harder to foster because it's like,
Yeah.
oh, you're a human, I'm a human, we're both doing our thing. There are things about your side and your story that I don't even know, the things that you're going through, the pressure under.
Mhm.
And it's so easy through social media to like project onto people narratives,
Mhm.
right? And I think that what you all collectively decided to do as a group to be like, listen, we won't make this about rivalry. We won't have beef and we will commit to have conversation with each other. It's like, yes, that's the key to everything, I think, right? It's like, why
Yeah.
can't we have more conversation with each other? So
Communication.
communication, yeah. So thanks for sharing that. Pythia, I'm curious if you have any social media strategies that you personally do to manage like not getting dragged into the mud, so to speak.
Yeah, I do actually, especially with the show during Drag Race. I feel like I'm not sure if you're aware, but the fandom is very, 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 very toxic.
I didn't know.
And oh, it is a big problem in the Drag Race world that affects a lot of girls. And I mean, I've seen the worst and the best ways to deal with it with other cast members and other queens on franchises. A lot of them sometimes will lash out and make a complete fools of themselves and completely get canceled. And others will just not engage at all. And I am others. I do not engage at all. I try not to read the comments. I try not to look up my name. I don't Google myself. I don't go on Reddit and look up myself. I just focus on the immediate messages of people that I know love and appreciate my work. And if I see something negative, I really just delete it. I delete it off my comments. I delete it off my inbox. I just try not to engage with that fire because I have tried once to sort of speak back, and it just actually creates like a not a catapult effect. What do you call it? Like a snowball effect of just like
Mm.
hate, 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 and people pile on, and then it just becomes a huge argument. So yeah, I've learned my lesson to just not engage at all and just delete and block. Block is the best option on social media that exists.
I sometimes think about social media or my pages as my house. You know, like
Mhm.
you're not entitled to come into my house. Like if I don't want you in my house, like first of all, if you don't like what's in my house, you can leave, right? Like that's your choice. No one's forcing you to be here. And also simultaneously, like, I don't want you in my house. Goodbye, right? Like it's like I think so.
Yeah.
I've started like blocking people, muting people, blah blah blah, and it's like none of us are entitled to any of these things, but we just make assumptions. And so, yeah, I really relate to what you just shared because I really feel like that's been the mechanism for me, especially for like, you know, like hatred directed at trans people or whatever. It's like it's so easy to like, and then it does impact you after a while, right? Like you see one bad comment and you're like, oh, whatever, but then you keep seeing them, and it's hard not to, at the end of the day, being like, maybe I should go die somewhere. So
Oh
I
my
think,
God.
yeah. So I think what you're sharing and your strategy, I second it as a strategy. Just don't look, mute, block, don't engage, and also
Yes.
at the end of the day, you're an artist, right? Like, so for me, it's always like, how do I protect the work? How do I protect the spark, the desire to make, and those things like really, you know, they detract, they distract, right? So yeah, I just have to say I love your emotional maturity. Like every response you've had has just been like just a very wise human being. The last question I'm going to ask you both is and you can answer it whatever way, is like, what have you learned from your jealousy, or what can jealousy teach us?
I think sometimes like it's really easy for me to get like absorbed in those feelings and like become overwhelmed with jealousy or comparison. And the ways that I take myself out of it are really to like go back to my intention, like we were talking about before. Um, think about all the reasons that I do make the art that I'm making and who I want to be making it for. Um, and really let that inspire me to keep going. I think like a little bit of jealousy is good because it's always like pushing you in creative ways, like maybe ways that you wouldn't have thought of before, or it's giving you the motivation to do things that you maybe wouldn't have done. Yeah.
I'm reflecting a bit on the fact that this seems to be like the comparison element seems to be so common in your world, and I'm curious, like if both of you could say one thing, like one thing that you wish you could see more from your drag sisters, so that this, you know, drag world could be more generative and less toxic at times.
Yeah, I think honestly, just being open to communication and not rushing into feelings and not rushing into and feeding these monsters, because it is like an energy that just, I don't know, piles on and feeds in itself. And I feel like if we have these conversations and we are able to understand that we are our own artists, we do what we do because we love it. We do what we do because it's important to us. We have a story to tell. We're certain voices. Unfortunately, we are given a huge, not unfortunately, fortunately, we're given a huge platform with this show that has become so mainstream. And it's important to use that for positive instead of feeding into all the negative. And I think that's
Mm.
the biggest takeaway. It's to not focus on this negativity and to not focus on the comparisons and to not focus on the jealousy. And I don't know, just remind ourselves why we do what we do and the platform that we've been given and actually what good we can do with it rather than use it for petty drama. So,
Hmm. Yeah, this
yeah.
idea that Denim has been speaking about, like this reminding ourselves why we do what we do, seems to be like
Yeah.
a common theme here. And Denim, is there, you know, one thing you wish you could say to your fellow, you know, drag sisters, you know, to maybe for it to feel less toxic at times?
Yeah, I think we just like really all need to be there for each other and like open to having like dialogue and conversation. Like every season of Drag Race, you will see people like having to come out and like defend someone. Like if I had drama with someone on my season, both people have to come out and speak about it to make like to reduce the backlash from the fandom because it's so toxic and sometimes it's really easy to get sucked into that and like hearing these voices constantly like pushing you towards a certain narrative can definitely like fuel your feelings of jealousy towards that person. But yeah, really just like grounding yourself and like coming back to reality and like only listening to your own intuition and actually communicating with the people who are directly involved is a lot more productive than engaging with people who have literally nothing to do with the situation.
I Won't Envy is produced in partnership with Buddies in Bad Times Theatre, the world's largest and longest running queer theatre. For 46 years, Buddies has carved out a sexy, disobedient edge in Toronto's theatre scene and has been a world leader in developing queer voices and stories for the stage. You can hear more about their programming, from theatre and festivals to parties and drag shows, at their website, buddiesandbadtimes.com, or find Buddies on social media at BuddiesTO. This winter, you can catch our guests from this episode, Denim and Pythia, at Buddies in their brand new show, Oraculum. Combining performance, puppetry, and projection into an otherworldly spectacle, Oraculum pulls back the velvet curtain on gender and spirituality as filtered through the crystal ball of an online scam psychic. I Won't Envy is a podcast by me, Vivek Shraya. It is recorded, edited, and engineered by Beau Cassidy, with original music by myself, produced by James Bunton. Thank you so much for listening.